Oh, see it.
All right, we are live and we're back with special guest George Newber talking about the eclipses, answering questions, investigating things. And so it is a great blessing, great honor. And I want to thank someone for pointing this out earlier. They said, I was previously subscribed, yet today I had to resubscribe twice.
Is that
So
right?
make sure you are checking for
Wow.
whatever reason couldn't be what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell, come back periodically and check because this is something that seems to happen. I know for some of my favorite channels. And so make sure you're doing that. Subscribe to George's channel. The links to his channel are in the description as well as his Facebook. And so if you're interested in the type of stuff he's talking about, I've seen a lot of people have been blessed and a lot of people are really smart and are understanding it. And so again, don't feel upset if some of the things have been over your head. It's a different language, kind of like science is a foreign language. I tell that to my students all the time when they come to my class for the first time, that the hardest part about science is you're learning a new language. And we use a lot of complex words and it's simple stuff, just big words sometimes. This may
Right.
not be the case, but yeah, this is something. It's a learning experience, and hopefully, with all the excitement over the eclipse, the world is pushing. It will bring people towards this direction, understanding that we're looking at lights in the firmament. It has nothing to do with a globe model, and so that should be um, destroyed today. The notion that this is happening on a globe. And so we all have different views on this. My view on this is still shifting. Talking to George and seeing his evidence is helping. I've watched some really brilliant minds have unique perspectives on this. I think Sean Griffin, Kingdom in Context, has a unique view with his Babylon series, Investigating Babylon. I have had the pleasure of seeing it in real life when he presented at Flattoberfest, where I met George,
Right.
and so I got to see the Cliff Notes version, and that was good. So it was cool to see that perspective of it. So is what's causing the eclipse? That is what this is about. I personally feel I'm kind of on the fence with this. Like it could be a sign in the heavens, and it could be also something the evil one's doing. It's definitely not um, the narrative that we're given, though. That's 100% true. It is not the globe model aspect.
Right.
And
Right.
so, looking into that, we know that this is not the case. When the enemy has a lie, they're going to put their sign, their mark, their numbers in there. I don't even like putting this stuff on the screen. I mean, it's
Right.
satanic when they take what the Father does, His signs in the heavens, they're going to change it, especially with the lunar eclipse, the way that works out. Not necessarily the solar, but you can see that representation of a solar eclipse there. Probably very similar with their lunar model that they make up, but it's satanic stuff. But the Father tells us, some signs are from Him. Not everything is evil. We're not saying that you look up at the heavens and just everything's from the devil. The Father set the lights in the firmament, the stars, the sun, and the moon in the firmament, and so that is the truth that we can all agree on. Hopefully, if not
Right.
now, at some point when we actually see the return and everybody sees it, things will start to get more clear. But this is a prophecy here in Acts I wanted to share when we're starting this off. It says here, and this is quoting Joel. This isn't just New Testament
Mhm.
lingo. This is from Joel, where that Peter's quoting here, and it's chapter 2 of Joel. If you're interested in looking at that, where he says, "And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy, and I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor and smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great notable day of the Lord." And so, is that a solar eclipse happening, or is he literally turning the sun dark? It's up to, I guess, everybody's interpretation of that. It's like we could look at the Bible and people see things totally different. And so that's just a verse that has been on my mind with this discussion is if the
Mhm.
enemy is fascinated with solar eclipses and they're not causing them, it could be because they're thinking, "Oh, the sun's going to go dark. We know it's going to be one of those times." Maybe that's why they're uh, prepping for Armageddon and doing Operation Steadfast Defender and all that. But we have in Jeremiah 10, somebody, a subscriber in the comments, said this to me this morning, and I put it up here. It says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them." You know, they had false gods for different constellations. They were all upset over these different things that were going on. Don't be worried with all these events, with what CERN is doing, with what the news is telling you. Do not be upset. Okay, the Father is our protector. We are His children. Don't be dismayed. Don't be scared. Don't let the fear get to you and start doom prepping and hoarding up on a bunch of supplies. Unless the Father tells you to do something, then you do it. Let's see. There's that word sign that it was talking about earlier in that verse. I added this, so this was back to that book of or verse in Acts, that it's a sign, a miracle, an indication, or a mark, or a token. Let me see. There you go. There's a lot of verses about the sun going dark, and in prophecy, it's not usually talking about, I don't think, an eclipse. In my opinion, it's about the end, that last little sign there. Isaiah talks about it. The stars of heaven and the constellations, therefore, shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. I mean, it kind of sounds a lot like a solar eclipse, because those things do somewhat happen, but the sun is still shining. It's just being partially blocked there. So it's not actually the sun going dark. So that doesn't fit the description. Right. And then in Joel, again, chapter 3, the sun and moon shall be darkened and the stars shall withdraw their shining, which I find that fascinating. Enoch talks about the stars representing our righteousness, the righteousness of the elect. That's why you can barely see these things. And so when we're gathered together, the stars not giving their light just makes a lot of sense to me. And then Zephaniah, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. In Ezekiel, where it says, and when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, not with a black disk, with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. So that kind of gives more of an answer there in Ezekiel, what's causing the darkness. And so if the eclipse were to be some sort of sign, or miraculous sign, I'm not saying it is, but if it was, it would make sense as to why they're trying to predict them and focus on them and obsess over them and do all the things they're doing. And because that's when Armageddon would follow soon after, with Operation Steadfast Defender, that NATO literally just had 90,000 troops or more, gathered for a near peer threat in the land near where Armageddon is. And Armageddon is owned by the United Nations. Yep. And so done a video about that. Not going to talk about that. I don't want to take away from George's presentation on this. Just thought that information was fascinating, given the events that are about to happen. And they're acting like they've got the, National Guard on standby, ready. And here we go. We just had Steadfast Defender right there. And I got on the map where you can see Armageddon is and the Euro-Atlantic area where they're preparing for this threat. Very close to home. I mean, obviously they're ramping it up, and the UFO threat and all that stuff is still near and dear to their heart.
Yes.
So interesting times. Again, just a recap of stuff we talked about before. NASA's, people say it's not a religion that they follow, but they follow NASA. NASA has their religious deities with every mission, and this is no different. The Eclipse, they have their serpent deity, the encircler of the world, the enemy, the serpent, the serpent of rebirth, they call it. They have their mission on that day, 3 rockets. And you can see this thing is just like their serpent tongue in their logo that many people have pointed out, that twisting serpent. And my wife found this in the book of Isaiah. Again, it talks about that piercing serpent. It says in Isaiah 27, in the day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, that piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. And so you look up those words, and instead of crooked, it says fleeing. And that word fleeing, when she looked that word up, what does that mean? I mean, we obviously know that means to leave, but it says of eclipse dragon. in the Brown Driver Briggs definition. So I don't know where they got that information from, but it's fascinating that we now have that Eclipse Dragon mission, serpent deity. And also, depending on how you do your calendars, my wife and I this year have done things a little differently, studying out Passover when it is, using the different calendars that, the Zadok calendar. And our last day, this doesn't match with everybody's. I know most people, I think, will be the next day. The day of the eclipse was actually what we considered our last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And most of you know when the crucifixion happened, they had already had their last, the Passover meal and all of that. And so it happened around this time. I'm not saying it was April 8th, but when he was crucified, the sun did go dark. I'm not saying it was an eclipse. A lot of people seem to believe that. Like we saw in Ezekiel, there was a thick cloud, and the Father, when this is happening, the agony, and we were talking about this. I see Dennis and Debbie in the chat talking about this today during our word study, and the Father turning his back. He cannot watch your child, this happening to your beloved son. There's going to be darkness, and so it's the saddest thing. But the mystery of what would happen was hidden from the enemy for a reason, and it's powerful. The events that have taken place since the resurrection. And so extremely powerful, extremely prophetic, a significant time. Let's see if I can get my slides to change here. There you go. And so from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, it went dark during that crucifixion. And from about the 6th hour to about the 9th hour, that eclipse is going to last. Again, I'm not saying this was the same thing that happened that day. Just fascinating. If this is from the enemy, mimicking what's already happened, you've got those significant places, which is kind of what made me wonder, is this from the enemy? The fact that it is like Salem, the Nineveh connection, all the different paths. Definitely not something that works on a globe. Unique stuff. And I saw this meme. I thought you would like this, George. It was on Facebook today. Shadows don't do this. And they had the moon, because the moon, according to their model, is about as wide as the United States, if I'm not mistaken. And so the shadow doing that, I mean, it's hard to imagine in their version of creation, the moon being that big, leaving a shadow that small. It just seems impossible.
Right.
And when we have a lunar eclipse, that scale, that shifting, that triangulation, where that shadow gets smaller, it doesn't happen. You don't see a reduction in the sizes whatsoever. So these are some things I was looking at this morning, and just looking at the math. I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to see there's a problem with these two different contrasting scenarios with the shadows. There's their little image of how it works, suspended in space, the pale blue dot.
Well, that one that you showed that had like a pinpoint cone.
Yeah.
That is what's happening. We'll talk about it tonight, but it's called the cone of perception.
Yeah.
Cone of perception. If somebody looking up, that's the cone of perception that you're going to see.
Yeah.
Yep.
And here's this is one thing I thought was pretty cool, was when I was looking up eclipses and I was looking up their paths, I was looking at how wide they are near the edge of the world, near Antarctica, and they're massive. They're many times thicker than they are when they're going over the U.S. When they're going over the U.S., they're very narrow. You can see it's just very thin. And down there at the bottom of a ball, allegedly, they're really wide. Well, if it's a sphere, the math is going to work the same on the top. The lines that you see on the top of the sphere are going to be wide like that as well. And you can see going through Greenland and Iceland, they're the same thickness. And so you can practice that. You can try that on a spherical object. The shadows will get actually thicker on the bottom if you have everything out the way it would work on a globe model, but it would be equal on the top and on the bottom. It would not differentiate. It's going to be the same, in my opinion, based on what I've done with just a cell phone flashlight and a giant yoga ball. You can do those if you have a spherical object. You can replicate that, or a globe. And what you're seeing in this picture doesn't match up to the globe model, because, again, it's not just a ball on one side. It's a ball on everywhere you go. It's a sphere.
Right.
And then for people who have never looked into this, there's the Selenelian eclipses. When it comes to the lunar, not the solar, but the lunar eclipses, where you can see the sun and moon above the horizon, and there's still an alleged Earth curve shadow showing us that it has nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth. And not only that, I mean, artists, anyone who's into painting can tell you the light coming off the moon is not the light coming off of a rock.
No.
There's so many different ways to disprove that.
Yeah.
And just pictures, just photography, comparing them, you can tell that is not a rock in the middle of a vacuum reflecting that light. It's giving off its own light. It's a cold light. It's different. And then you have the last thing here, a lot of people concerned about CERN. Don't be. Like we said earlier at the start of this, the Father is in control. There's a reason in Revelation when you know with the fifth seal, there's that aspect of you're not going to hurt the ones that are sealed for the Most High, and we have His protection. We're going to be persecuted, and we're not going to have rewards that we can't lose. But it's not like all this destruction is going to happen, and His children are going to be unprotected. And so they're doing it on April 8th. Going way back 120 years ago, Aleister Crowley did his demon summoning thing on April 8th to come up with his bogus book of the law, where they're mimicking the Most High's actual book of the law that's in the Bible that it talks about. So 120 years ago, they were doing this. So CERN is nothing new. They're trying to do these things. They're not going to do some sort of space-time continuum, time travel, anything like they put in Hollywood. It's all for evil, sinister purposes, but they can't do stuff beyond what they're allowed to do. They can't speed up the book of Revelation. They can't do it. And so don't be dismayed at the signs in the heavens. This is not something to scare you guys. Hopefully you understand that. It's a time to learn, come together, and just look at how this stuff falls apart when you try to use the worldview that we used to have, how this does not work on a globe. There's and a lot of the math that George is doing will show that and has shown that. So we're thankful for him to be here. I'm going to let him take over with his presentations and share some things. And if you guys have questions, he's willing to answer after it's over, or even during it. Sometimes if I see a question, I might ask if there's a chance with some of the stuff. But we appreciate you guys joining us, moderators in the chat. You guys are a blessing, and we thank you for all your hard work. It does not go unnoticed, even though we may not say thank you every time you're keeping people in line. It's a major blessing. So again, George Newber.
Thanks, Josh.
In the house.
Appreciate you having me on the third time in a week. It's pretty amazing.
It's a record.
I don't know if you got the presentation, the PDF. There's one PDF that needs to be loaded up, but this won't be as long as the other ones, and it won't be as mathematical as well. There'll be some, but not like the first two were. But, you know, people say people are smart, and my answer to that is I'm not smart. I'm just trying to search for truth.
Oops.
You know, and I'm searching for the truth. The Father is giving me insights that I've never seen before, you know, and so He's the one that's doing it, not me. He's just using me as a conduit. That's why I have to share it. I have to share the truth because He's given it to me. And this is all part of the kingdom of God. It sets up the kingdom of God. People has a better understanding of where we live, what's above us. And so it can make more sense, and it's not mystical or a mystery. So it's taken me 2 years, and I'm still learning. I'm always learning about the navigational data. 2 years to figure it out. 1.5 years to finally realize, you know, how the whole circular level plane worked as far as latitude and longitude. So, and a lot of that too, I was watching pretty much all the series from Sean Griffin, Investigating Babylon. So yes, my end out of all the research is I agree with what he's showing. Okay. But let's go start the presentation.
All right. Is it this one? First one right here?
Yep. So this is going to be part 3 of what we've been doing. So I'm going to go back again. I mean, each start of each presentation, I'm going to talk about the surface of water is always level. It doesn't bend or curve. It's just geometric nature, which Yahweh did for His creation. So this is the third time because I've presented the first time. We'll go to it now. The first part. I'm using these two locations on the web. Basically, one is a topographic map that tells you what the elevation is above sea level anywhere on the earth. The second is a map that tells you the distances between one point to the other. So you can do this anywhere. Anybody can do this themselves. Just get on these two websites together, put them in different windows, and then click on where you want to go from distance to distance, from one ocean to the other ocean, and then get on the topographic map and see what the elevation of the water is at those two locations. It's going to be 0 because the surface of the water is always level. So I'm going to re-show this. This was in part 1. That Lake Michigan's south to north distance is over 300 miles. You can see the distance there from north to south. It shows that it's 321 miles. Then here's the surface elevation point for the south location. On the south end, it's 575 feet above sea level. Then here you have it on the north side, 575 feet. So it's level all the way across, which means the whole shoreline on that perimeter shoreline on that lake is at the same level. It doesn't bend or curve. So when we look at the data compared to what, the circular level plane Earth, we know it's flat, but with the globe, because of the geometry of it, as it says, that according to the size of the Earth's sphere at a distance of 300 miles requires the Earth to have 11 miles of curvature. There is none of that there, none. So hopefully the people's cognitive dissonance will start realizing that you can't have, it's not a level surface at all when you have a curved surface, especially when you're down underneath. If it was truly a ball, you're totally upside down. It just doesn't work out. And this geometric law of water just proves it. Then on part 2, I decided, because I had some comments, it's not level. So I'll do the big picture now, ocean to ocean, across multiple distances. So the distance between the Delaware Bay and the Southern Ocean location point on the globe map is 6,348 miles. You can see that highlighted there, the distance. So I did the same thing. And by the way, this is a same longitude line here. I did this on purpose to show that the latitude distances on both the circle level plane map and the globe map, which is curved, is the same. They just took a straight line and made it a circle for the outer circumference of the globe Earth. And here it is shown on the Gleason's map. It's the same distance, 6,348 miles. And you can see first on the map, you can see where it's going from Delaware Bay all the way to the tip, just to the side of South America. And so how you can calculate it is, it's known that the degrees distance from latitude to latitude is an actual distance measurement. So up where it's at the Delaware Bay, the latitude's farther north from the equator. It's a plus 39 degrees. And then the latitude degrees down south from the equator is minus 53. So you add those two together, you get 92 degrees of latitude distance. So for both maps are the same as far as latitude distance, distances per degree in miles. It's 69 miles per degree of latitude. So all you got to do is multiply 92 degrees of latitude times 69 miles per degree of latitude. You get exactly 6,348 miles. Okay. So this time with the big picture, this second bullet here, the spherical globe requires the surface of the Earth to curve more than 3,700 miles, which is huge. It's almost a 90-degree curve on the Earth if it was a globe. Okay, this cannot happen. And so this rock solid proves that this entire circular area of water here is contained by the Antarctica perimeter ice wall and then contained by the shorelines of all landmass areas. Okay. Tonight, I'm going to do a small scale now. This is going now to a lot smaller distance I'm going to use my Nikon camera on Myrtle Beach, right on the shoreline, and look at a spot. I'm going to go from one pier to the next pier, and these piers are 7 miles apart. And so to do this, I had to basically, change the tables for the curvature because I'm actually up 6 foot above sea level when I get real close to the ocean, because the tripod's about 6 foot above where it's sitting. So this table basically tells you curvature distances with the camera at 6 foot above sea level, which I'll be right on the shoreline. So when you come down here to 7 miles, this tells you that 7 miles away, the curvature should be 10 foot, a little over 10 feet, which means I shouldn't be able to see the shoreline, right? So what I'm going to do now is to just show you, I actually Instead of using the calculations, this lower graph here is part of my AutoCAD that I use to get the true geometrical distances because it's perfect geometry. I literally had a circle that was the diameter of the Earth and then started marking off certain miles from the center of it to get the different distances from the viewpoint. So you'll see this here. Can you play video one, the Myrtle Beach video, Josh?
Yeah, let me see.
It should show the tripod on it. I don't know if you can see that or
Okay,
not.
there you go.
Now we will use a Nikon
That one?
P1000
That sounds
That's
it.
it.
camera to test the Earth's surface curvature at a distance of 7 miles. A Nikon P1000 camera can magnify 125 times and take pictures and videos 20 miles away. But first we need to adjust the curvature distances due to the height of the camera above ground level. Based on a camera height of 6 feet above ground level, the table shows curvature distances based on the following AutoCAD video. So here we're back in AutoCAD again, and the long lines is the 4,000 mile radius of the Earth going out to the curvature. So we're zooming in. You can see that the camera height's at 6 feet. It comes in there, and we're going to zoom in to show the actual, there it is, 6 foot above curvature. And then we're going to just click on there so you can see that it says it's 6 feet.
Are you able to see that, Josh?
Yeah, that's cool how far you can zoom in on this program and zoom
Right.
out. Wow.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go back out and show what the height is above the curvature for 1 mile, because now we'll be able to see above it. It's 2 foot 8 inches at 1 mile above the Earth's curvature, theoretically. Then at 2 miles, it's 8 inches above. And at 3 miles, it's 0. Then at 4 miles, it's 8 inches below. At 5 miles, it's 2 feet 8 inches below. At 6 miles, it's 5 foot 11 inches below. And 7 miles is 10 foot 8 inches below, which is where we're going to be. So as we keep spanning out towards the 90 miles of curvature, you'll see the distances go higher and higher of the curvature distance below the line of sight of the camera. Now we are going to bring up the topographic map and map distance calculator websites again. In Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, there are 2 piers which are 7.16 miles apart from each other. Here's a Myrtle Beach topographic map and the map distance calculator. I'm going to zoom in on the map distance calculator to locate Pier 14. And there it is right there. I'm going to mark that as a point on the map. So you got that point. And we're going on the topographic map to locate Pier 14 and check the surface level of the water, which we know should be 0 feet. There it is. And the surface level is 0 feet, which is sea level. Now on the distance calculator map, we're going to go and find the Apache Pier, which is a little over 7 miles north of Pier 14. So we got our mark, and it shows it's 7.16 miles in distance. So that's where I'm going to set the camera up on Pier 14, looking north, the Nikon camera. Locate that pier. Now we'll go back over to the topographic map. To see what the elevation is going to be at the Apache Pier, which by now we would know it's going to be 0 feet because it's at sea level. The surface of the oceans are at sea level, 0 feet. And there it is, 0 feet. This is Pier 14, and I used my mobile phone to show where I set up the Nikon P1000 camera, which is right at the shoreline and looking north toward the Apache Pier. I lowered the legs of the tripod so that the camera height above the surface of the water would be 6 feet. This is video from the Nikon P1000 camera looking north. I slowed the video so we can see the shoreline better as the camera zooms out to find the Apache Pier. The shoreline is clearly visible as we continue to zoom out toward the Apache Pier. The wind was between 10 to 17 miles per hour that day, which makes it hard for the camera to stay in focus, especially when zooming farther out.
Yeah, the wind really plays a big role in long distance
Yeah.
footage at the beach.
I was trying to wait for it to calm
The
down.
shoreline at the Apache Pier is 7 miles from the camera. Based on
the
a
light
spherical Earth,
here.
the shoreline at the Apache Pier should be 10 foot below the site of the camera. However, the shoreline is clearly seen at the Apache Pier and beyond the pier. This again proves the surface of the oceans are level and the Earth is
There
not
it is.
spherical in shape.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So that, yeah, I mean, all different distance locations, wherever you go, it's always flat. The level water surface of the water is always level and flat. So we talked about a compass, how that works and needs to be level. I got a short video there too. It shows the compass, just to show that one. I use a beach ball to make the point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think Matt was telling me about this one.
Oh, not that one yet.
Oh, not that one. Sorry.
Yeah, the next one. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I clicked that one. There
Here
we go.
I've placed my compass, which has a bubble level on top of a countertop. We can see by the bubble level that the countertop is level because the bubble is centered within the eyeglass circle. Since the compass is level, the compass needle is able to move freely to locate magnetic north. As I rotate the compass clockwise, the magnetic north needle stays pointed to magnetic north because the compass is level. Next, I will place the compass on a beach ball, which represents a spherical Earth, to see how the compass functions to find magnetic north. Here is a beach ball, which represents a spherical Earth. I place the compass on top of the beach ball, which represents the North Pole of a spherical Earth. As I keep the compass level by using the bubble level, we observe the magnetic north needle is free to rotate and finds magnetic north. When I place the compass on the side of the beach ball, which would represent the equator on a spherical Earth, the compass is 90 degrees vertical from being level. We observe the bubble is at the top of the eyeglass circle. The magnetic north needle is no longer free to rotate, but rather rotates along with the movement of the compass, resulting in the compass not being able to find magnetic north. When I move the compass back up to the top of the beach ball, I am able to level the compass, and the compass then finds magnetic north. When I place the compass on the bottom of the beach ball, which would represent the South Pole on a spherical Earth, the compass is 180 degrees upside down from being level. We observe the bubble is at the top of the eyeglass circle. The magnetic north needle is no longer free to rotate, but rather rotates along with the movement of the compass, resulting in the compass not being able to find magnetic north. Navigation using a compass proves Earth is a circular level plane. A compass requires the compass needle to be level to freely rotate to locate magnetic north. Anyone using a compass anywhere on Earth to navigate is able to locate magnetic north once the compass is level. However, a spherical Earth is only level at the North Pole. All other locations going south from the North Pole are between 1 degrees to 180 degrees out of level. The equator is 90 degrees out of level or perpendicular to the North Pole. The South Pole is 180 degrees out of level or upside down to the North Pole. Therefore, since anyone using a compass anywhere on Earth to navigate is able to locate magnetic north, the compass proves that Earth is a circular level plane with north located at the center of Earth's circle. They are navigating on a circular level plane and they just don't know it.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember looking into compasses and then seeing that meme where it's like, it only works when it's held flat. And I'm like, looking up the globe, going back to elementary school when they were showing me this sphere with just lava in the middle. And
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute, do magnets even work when they're heated up? Because they told me it was like a bar magnet going through a ball. And I instantly find a video of a magnet being heated up and not working. So I'm like, wait, so you heat up a magnet, it doesn't work, but our magnetic field is like a bar magnet going through a sphere.
Right.
I was like, why is no one questioning that narrative when it just makes sense to me that
right.
a compass works best? And then I saw, in the early days, David Weiss had that map and he circumnavigated with a magnet in the middle of the north, where the North Pole is. He circumnavigated and the compass pointed north the entire time when it was flat. And I remember thinking,
yep,
that's what I was told proved I lived on a globe. That scenario there, a boat going in a circle. And you can even do that on a globe. Like you can go to close to the North Pole on a if it was a globe, and circumnavigate in circles. That's not proving that it's round, but when you get further away, it does.
Yes,
you just got to be far enough away, and that proves it.
Right.
So yeah, the magnet, the compass was a big one for me early on, realizing we're just navigating a flat circular plane.
Right. And if it was a sphere and you were at the bottom at the South Pole, guess if it would even work, guess where it would point to? To the ground. To the ground. Because it's going to point through the north, right? If it worked. So let's go back to the PDF presentation now for a little bit.
Okay. Let's see. That one?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. So, you know, the basic geometric law that the surface of water never bends or curves is the only thing you need to do and know that the heliocentric model is false and a lie by Satan, the deceiver of the world. That's all you need to do. I mean, because no longer is it a globe spinning. It's level. You know, it can't spin if it's level. So the foundation of the heliocentric model is that the Earth is a counterclockwise spinning sphere orbiting around the sun. However, through scientific observation, testing, and repetition, the Earth is a circular level plane, resulting in all aspects of the heliocentric model to be false and a lie. The Earth is fixed and immovable. The firmament slash barrier slash heaven is above the Earth to maintain air pressure and oxygen levels for life on Earth to exist. The sun, moon, and stars are luminaires slash lights, which rotate clockwise within the firmament barrier or heavens above the Earth's firmament barrier. Almighty Yahweh created the heavens and the earth, and there is no vacuum of space. I mean, just this level water knocks all the stuff out that the heliocentric model tells you. You don't have to do anything else except know that truth. So we're going to talk about the rotating Earth impossibility. So this graph, most people, if you ask most people, they don't know. They say, oh yeah, the Earth's spinning clockwise. But if you ask them, how fast is it going at the equator? They don't know because they're not interested. So this shows you the cut through at the latitude lines, what's going on. At the equator, it's 1,035 miles per hour that's going, okay? Because it's what it takes to rotate once in 24 hours. So when you start going 15 degrees latitude south or north, it slows it down because the diameter of that latitude line in that part of the circle is less. And as you keep going farther down, then you're at 900 miles per hour, 732, 518, 206. And of course, when you get to the bottom, you're just kind of standing there, la, 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 you know. So this is the latitude surface speeds due to rotation, quote, rotation. So the counterclockwise rotation ranges from 518 miles per hour at latitude 60 degrees to 1,035 miles per hour at the equator. The speed of sound is 746 miles per hour, so that's hauling pretty well. And not only that, but the commercial airlines cruise around 550 miles per hour, so something's wrong here. Especially now that we know that's false geometry of the Earth. Since the Earth is rotating, quote, rotating, at these enormous high speeds, you have to think about it. Earth's air at the ground level also needs to rotate with the Earth at the same speeds because there are many instances where no wind is felt or observed. We see it all the time. We go outside, it's calm, there's no wind. Next thing we have a little breath of air go one way, then the other way. So that in itself, doing that tells you something's not right either. I mean, if this Earth's moving that fast, the wind would have to go along with it. So if the wind did not rotate along with the Earth, no life structures or trees would exist on the Earth due to the surface wind shear of 518 to 1,035 miles per hour. Just think, hurricanes that go between 74 to 185 miles per hour, do such damage to structures and properties, but that's nothing compared to the wind shear of, quote, a rotating Earth. So this pretty well makes it impossible in that aspect of it, where you can go outside and you can sit there and it's like there's no wind, but then you feel the breath of wind going east or west. It swirls north or south. It totally discounts the Earth rotating, but just because of that. Basic, kind of logical thinking. However, life structures and trees do exist. So if the Earth is rotating between 518 and 1,030 miles per hour, then the air at the surface of the Earth must be moving with the Earth between the same speed, right? This would be called Earth's west to east background surface airspeed. That's what I would call it. But do you ever hear that from anybody? No one ever describes this phenomenon, not the weather channels. They won't go, yeah,
No.
the weather today, the wind's going this way, even though the background speed is 518 or 1,035 miles per hour. They never say anything like that because it's
Yeah.
not, it's not there. And not the airline pilots either. Oh yeah, the winds are pretty good. Yeah, we're trying to go against this wind shear of 518 miles per hour. Like, if they tried to do that, they would go nowhere.
Yeah. And I noticed with the news too, when they're doing weather, they added a few years back the curvature of the earth when they're showing you the weather patterns. Used to, it was just a flat map with,
Yeah.
the radar from the ground picking up the clouds moving by. And now it's like you always see the earth curvature on the weather channels now with the globe model. They just emphasize that, like, out of nowhere, they started doing that. As soon as we started testing the globe, they started increasing the programming.
Yep, and then people getting smarter about it. So this background surface airspeed between 518 to 1,035 miles per hour is always blowing west to east will prevent the following actions, which always occurs and we observe. Days when the air is totally calm or still, and then a slight breeze swirls to the west or any other direction in just a few seconds. And then commercial airlines flying northwest or southwest at a speed of 550 miles per hour reach their westerly destinations without delay, So very simple way to prove that, if you thought about it spinning, how that's impossible to do as well, because our winds would not be as calm. They wouldn't, on a circular level plane, no movement. And so that's how we can have all different types of winds, any speeds and directions occurring at any time. Therefore, the Earth is fixed and non-rotating. So now we're going to talk about the Earth's air. Air is primarily consists of two gases. It's 78% nitrogen and 20.9% oxygen at sea level. The air pressure at sea level is 14.7 psi, pounds per square inch.
Wow.
Sea level is the perfect elevation for the human body to live due to the highest concentration of 20.9% oxygen in the air. The higher elevation above sea level, the less dense the air becomes and the oxygen concentration in the air is reduced. By the way, when people talk about they get aches, their joints hurt, they don't feel good when the low pressure comes in. That's because the pressure on their body's less, and now their body expands some because the pressure isn't counteracting our pressure. Okay.
Wow.
So here's just a table that shows you altitude above sea level, starting at 0 feet and up to 250,000 feet, what the air pressure is, and then the oxygen percentage. Okay. And then, we'll get to what these really mean as far as health for the human body and things like that right here. Air's oxygen concentration limits altitudes where humans can live. The safe oxygen levels for humans to sustain normal functions, the percentage of oxygen required to sustain life according to, well, this is government, OSHA, is between 19.5% and 23.5%. Not enough oxygen side effects. Oxygen concentrations from 19.5% to 16% cause the body's cells to fail to receive oxygen needed to function correctly while doing physical activities. Oxygen concentrations from 14 to 10% result in impaired mental functions, intermittent respiration, and body exhaustion at any amount of physical activity. Humans won't survive with oxygen levels 6% or lower. Most of the world's populations live on coastal plains with altitudes of 500 feet or less. That's a data point I didn't know until I started researching this.
Wow. Makes sense.
Yeah, where oxygen concentrations are at safe/healthy levels between 20.9% and 19.6. Rivers are a perennial source of water for drinking, bathing, and farm irrigation. That's why we kind of stay on those low areas. Okay. Land near rivers are fertile for growing crops and raising farm animals. Rivers provide transportation routes for selling goods. There's a group of people, though, that are in Tibet. They live at elevation 17,500, which is way up there.
Wow.
It becomes too cold around above that for growing crops, and there's not enough air or oxygen for humans to sustain, to be able to live up there. It's like kind of an interesting thing to look at as far as, air and percent of oxygen as you go up in elevation. So Earth's sky, how high? The higher the elevation above sea level, the less dense the air becomes and the oxygen concentration in the air was reduced. So here's some data points. 42,000 feet above sea level, that's 8 miles, is the limit of commercial airlines cruising altitude. 60,000 feet, 11.4 miles, air pressure is at 1.69 psi with 0% oxygen in the air, 11.4 miles up. And there's no combustion with standard jet engines there. Pressure suits are required for pilots to prevent bodily liquids from boiling. They found that out once they started going to that elevation, that literally the fluids like urine and blood would come out through the skin. So what they do, they had to have a suit on to pressurize the suit so that wouldn't happen. Basically, it's almost like your fluids are boiling out, is what it says here.
Wow.
So at 67 miles, that's 354,199 feet. Here's some records that I found. August 22nd, 1963, X-15 rocket crossing the Kármán line the first time. Air pressure is 0 or at a vacuum state. Notice it says rocket. So they can't have an engine. So what they were doing, they had basically a plane, it was carrying this rocket, and they get to a certain elevation, and they would still have the pilot, so to speak. He's not really piloting it, but he's just driving it now. That rocket would get enough speed and distance capability to go up higher. Okay, once it already had used its combustion, because it had to do it lower, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first time we're learning about a Kármán line at 67 miles. And then I found another one. This is interesting. 367,000 feet, about 69.6 miles, not much higher than the previous one. October 4, 2004. Here we go. Spaceship One crossing the Kármán line. And again, the air pressure is 0. And the vacuum is in a vacuum state. But this is, okay, what's a Kármán line? So that's the next slide. Kármán line, separating Earth's sky from space. Oh, wow. The Kármán line is it's an invisible boundary that's used by some to delimit where the Earth's sky ends and space begins. And this Kármán line was established in the 60s by FAI and has been used by members, countries, and organizations affiliated with FAI as one of the definitions of space. The FAI definition of the Kármán line is around 62 miles above sea level, which, now we can say, well, that could be getting close to where the firmament is, if since we know there's a barrier. So, but wait a minute, if there is no physical boundary between the Earth's sky and space, then the Earth would be a vacuum with no sky, no air pressure, no oxygen, and no human life. Okay.
Yep.
Here we go with, thermodynamic laws.
Yeah, gravity knows where that Kármán line is.
Yeah, right. Well, we just debunked gravity because we know that the Earth's flat. It can't, and it doesn't rotate. And
Yeah.
that's why they use gravity from that. Second law. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's so cool how all these things work. Like you were talking earlier during our study about the electric charge. They increase as you go up. I saw a guy doing that with a drone and testing how the charges are more positive as you get higher and negative as you get lower.
Yep.
Fascinating.
That's the ether that Yahweh created everything through. It's amazing. So the second law of thermodynamics states gases at different pressures will always combine to an equilibrium pressure. With no boundary between the Earth's sky and space, and this is, you got to think about this. Okay, so they say space is an infinite, right? Infinite size. So the 0 psi, 0% oxygen vacuum of the, quote, infinite volume of space, unquote, will combine with the 14.7 psi, 20.9% oxygen of the very limited volume of Earth's air to an equilibrium pressure of 0 psi, 0% oxygen, 0% vacuum of space, and there'd be no life on Earth. So if you look at that, there'd be nothing here existing. There'd be no life. However, the fact that the Earth's air always has been here and it will be here with 14.7 psi, with 20.9% oxygen at sea level proves a boundary or barrier does exist above the Earth's sky. So we're going to do a test with 2 vacuum chambers, both the same volume of about 2 gallons, and a vacuum pump can prove there is a boundary/barrier above the Earth's sky by using the second law of thermodynamics. So this is a picture. I'm going to show the picture to set it up before we show the video. But You can see that these two chambers, the lower one, I call it the chamber number one, Earth's air. It's got two valves. The one on the right is the outside air barrier valve, because that's allowing the outside air to come into that chamber. Then the valve on the other side is called the outer space barrier valve. That's going to go up. That line goes up to the upper chamber, which is the quote outer space. And then that valve up there on the left of that top chamber is a valve end line to Earth's air chamber. And go over to the right, that valve is a barrier valve in line to the vacuum pump, which comes down here to the vacuum pump below. Okay, so that's the setup. So I'll probably talk through it a little bit too as it's playing, but once you see this setup, and by the way, it's got the pressure gauges here. They're both showing all the way to the right. That's really 14 psi. If it goes all the way turns to the left, it'll be zero. It'll be 100% vacuum or 0 psi. Okay, both of them right now are showing that it's 14.7 psi. And literally, I'm pretty much at sea level here in Myrtle Beach. And then once it's so right now, this picture showing that both chambers are at 14 psi. So what I'll do is close both the Earth's air chamber valves closed. Okay, both the right and the left. I'm going to close it because I need to keep that air chamber at 14.7 psi, separate from the upper vacuum chamber when I turn on the vacuum pump. Okay. So
you add the video?
Yeah, go ahead and put the video up. So here's the setup. I'm just going to zoom in, show that both valves are open. So all the valves are open now, so that both chambers have 14.7 psi air pressure in them. Okay. Just kind of show the hookup with the line going up top. And so all valves are open right now. It shows that both pressure gauges are at 0, means it's at 14.7 psi. 0 vacuum. And there's a line going to the vacuum pump. So next I'm going to go ahead and turn on the switch on the vacuum pump. It took me a while for some reason to turn it on, so it'll be a little bit of a, but you'll see I'm going to close these valves at the bottom here. Closed now. See? Closed off. Right there. Those two valves to the Earth chamber. And these are still open because I'm going to vacuum down that chamber, the quote outer space chamber. You turn the pump on, and you'll see the upper chamber, the pressure will go down to 0 psi. I mean, zero, it's a full vacuum. Full vacuum. 0 psi. Goes pretty good. Pretty fast.
Wow, that's quick.
Yep. I had to tap the gauges because sometimes they get stuck. I don't know why, but just me tap it a couple times. Get it down. But it's going to go to -30. This is 0 pressure.
We'll put a little spaceman in there.
Oh.
Watch him blow up like a balloon.
Good guy, yeah. So now that I get to the 0, we get a full vacuum, I'm going to turn that valve right there, close it off. Now that both chambers are separate, okay? The upper chamber now has 0 psi, the bottom one has 14.7. When I open the bottom valve, they're going to equal to about 7 psi because they're going to mix 50-50, what we expect, based on the thermodynamic law of pressure, different pressures combining. So I'm going to open up that left valve now. That's the barrier valve. Okay.
No, outer space.
There you go. So see, it went to half pressure down there, and it went to, they're basically the same pressure.
They're equaled 7 out.
Yep.
Just
so
like.
There you go. You have to have that barrier valve to maintain 14.7 psi in the bottom chamber. So this is a law that proves that out. I actually thought about buying 2 more of these and just make how much worse it can get. You know, it's easy to calculate. It is just an equation that you can do this with.
Yeah, I liked watching the experiments with these vacuums in the early days. That was one of my favorite things to watch. because you had proof that it wouldn't work. Like they would put these, like they put Stretch Armstrong inside of a vacuum, and they even put Vac-Man. It was like this version of like, I don't know, like Stretch Armstrong's nemesis or enemy. And he was one of those where you can suck the air out of him, but they would put him in a vacuum chamber, even with the air sucked out of him, and he would just balloon up so big. And I remember thinking, how did those astronauts going onto the moon not have that problem where you go from one environment to the next, and just boom, expand.
Yep.
And I was asking people, and they're like, well, their suits had to have accommodated that. I'm like, they're just cloth. You can watch them being made. They're not made out of metal. They're not like knights in armor. Like these are just regular suits, and they're inside of a container that's 3 sheets of foil thick.
Exactly.
That's what they tell us. They say you had to be careful not to poke your finger through it. And you look at pictures, you're like, it looked like somebody did. There's obviously like wrinkles in the foil, and that stuff, whatever kind of foil that is, you can bungee jump with that stuff. Like it doesn't break apparently, because a vacuum is powerful. And so, I mean, I would not, with any suit on, go inside of a vacuum chamber ever. I think your saliva would start to boil, like the one it actually happened. And when you watch the old videos when they did it, the guy said his saliva started to boil, and then he blacked out. And apparently there was allegedly something wrong with his suit, and they saved him somehow. He didn't die. And then they did this like video in more recent times, like 7-8 years ago, with a guy in a vacuum chamber sitting in there. He's like talking to this crew, and it was like, I can't remember who did this, but the guy goes into the vacuum chamber, and there's somebody there in like military gear watching him, but they only have like a fighter pilot helmet on. They're not like in a spacesuit, and they're watching, and they actually leave after the whole after it started becoming a vacuum chamber, environment. This person's walking around in there. I'm like, their face, like they're exposed. Like it was so bogus, but people are like, nope, see, there's proof of a vacuum. And no, you could not have skin exposed in that environment. Like it's crazy how rough that is.
You couldn't build a structure. There's no way. These things that they go up with the rockets and stuff, it's all fake. They don't go outside. We have a firmament. They can't even get past that. So it's all smoke and mirrors. But even, there's just no way, because in the full vacuum like that, you cannot build a structure that will hold itself up. It'll just go like this. You just can't, can't do it. And with a full vacuum, there's no movement. There's no thrust, no combustion. And, if I had put a mouse in that Earth's chamber, and it would die. When it combined, the mouse would have died. It's 7 psi. So that's a simple way to show all that, and another one that's simple to do, but they'll never show that or even bring that up in education.
Yeah. And I saw a video, somebody had a miniature rocket test going off in a vacuum, and they were trying to prove that it shows you that thrust could happen in a vacuum, but you see this little rocket just hanging there in the air, or in the vacuum, not in the air. It's just hanging by like a wire, and they got it to ignite in the vacuum, which is like almost impossible to get something to ignite in a vacuum, because there's no air for ignition. And so, but they were able to get ignition. I think they have to protect whatever's the combustible product from the vacuum. So you have to encapsulate it where there's oxygen and all that. And so they were able to get combustion, and the combustion shot out the backside of the rocket, but the rocket didn't move until the gases hit the back of the chamber and gave them something to push off of. So it was pushing off of its own gases, but it was stationary until the combustion reached the back wall. I wish I'd have brought that video on, but that was so cool to me to see that if it wasn't for the back wall of that vacuum chamber, that rocket would have went nowhere. But it needed that back wall to push off of. It needed something to push off of. Planes push off air, boats push off water. Like they need something. And with the vacuum chamber, you don't have anything. And these NASA rockets, whenever they do their little burst to go from 17,000 miles per hour to 17,000 mile, 1 mile per hour faster, they have these little sprays. It's like, it looks like they're spraying water bottles out the side of their ship. There's no flames. There's nothing. It's just like you're spraying water out to go faster. It does not look like combustion at all. But they're like, yep, we're doing a reboost, guys. Here we go. Now we're going 17,501 miles per hour.
Yeah. So I'm trying to do some more things with the vacuum chambers I have. I want to do. My wife Teresa's like, you better not do that in the garage. You should do it outside. I'm going to make my own rocket fuel, which would have the combustion capability, right?
Yeah.
And then just put a little bit in there, because I actually bought a laser that I can go through and ignite it. It'll go through the plastic and ignite it. Pretty cool. You have to wear some special glasses for that, so you don't mess your eyes up. But
get some slow-mo cameras.
Yeah, that's down the road, but I'm pretty busy with other stuff. So.
Oh yeah, you got a lot going on. You guys do a lot on the side. I'm sure you got your job, then you've got your ministry.
Yeah.
And the math, all that.
So get back to the presentation.
Yeah, let me add that back up there. There you go.
Okay. So based on what we just had, here's the conclusion. The second law of thermodynamics states gases at different pressures will always combine to an equilibrium pressure. It is always scientifically calculable, testable, and repeatable. This law requires a barrier above the Earth's sky to maintain the perfect air pressure of 14.7 psi at sea level for life to exist. And, basically I say that same thing again, if there was no boundary, there'd be no life on Earth. But Almighty God's scriptures state that there is a barrier above Earth's sky, and his name, the firmament, is also called heaven. Hallelujah.
Yes.
So I threw this in there again. We already talked about it, but this is NASA doing their thing right now, trying to keep their agenda going with NASA's atmospheric perturbations around Eclipse Path project. You talked about this earlier on, where the 3 rockets are going to go up and they're going to check out a lot of the, ionosphere. But you already mentioned why they're called it that, because it's always going to be something with false gods and linked to Satan. So I'll just go to the next slide here. But I want to share this because I posted this up on Facebook, my Facebook page. So I found out that this project is led by Barjada, I don't know how to say that. He's a professor of engineering physics at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. But I found this, what he said in an article, quote, "If you think of an ionosphere as a pond with some gentle ripples in it, the eclipse is like a motorboat that suddenly rips through the water." And he said it creates a wake immediately underneath and behind it. And then the water level momentarily goes up as it rushes back in. So wait a minute. You mean the ionosphere is like a firmament? Hidden truth and deception? The firmament begins around the ionosphere? So here we go again. It's another indication that that's where the barrier is, but they just call it the ionosphere.
Yeah.
And it's just, I couldn't believe he said that. It's like, wow. So if something hits it, it might move around, but it's going to stabilize and get back to its normal state. The firmament, that is.
Yeah. I saw the imagery. They used their data. It's always data and animations, but the data from the changes in the charges during the eclipses, it did look like a boat moving through the water with that change. And I thought that's weird that it has like that wake behind it.
Yes.
If it was just a light in the sky, like so many things don't make sense with the globe model, the Elias effect where pendulums are changed, where it looks like there's something moving through water, the ripples we've seen in front of the moon, like all of these things point to a firmament.
Right. So we didn't get a chance to watch this video in part 2. I'm glad we're doing this because this is another thing where the fake heliocentric model graphics, diagrams, and perspective. So I have it on there. Yes. It's going to talk about these graphics because they never show these things in the right perspective, the right relational sizes with each other, or the distances that they are apart, the sun and the earth. So go ahead and play.
Is it the video on the bottom here? This one?
Hello and welcome to Geotruth.
That one?
Yep.
Okay, let me play that one.
Today we're going to talk about NASA's fake heliocentric model. Here are a couple of typical fake heliocentric model graphics, diagrams, and perspectives. These graphics, diagrams, and perspectives are never scientifically, geometrically consistent, or correct in terms of the relative sizes of the Sun, Earth, and the distances between the Sun and the Earth. On the left graphic, the Sun is larger than the Earth, and on the right graphic, the Earth is larger than the Sun. Both graphics totally ignore the distances between the Earth and the Sun. The navigational data for the United States Naval Observatory is influenced by the, quote, spinning tilted spherical Earth elliptically orbiting the Sun, unquote, especially at latitudes near the, quote, poles. The NASAites' deceiving heliocentric model. The Sun is a gaseous fireball 870,000 miles in diameter. The Earth is a sphere/planet 7,912 miles in diameter. The Earth rotates counterclockwise on a tilted axis of 23.44 degrees. The Earth orbits the Sun in a very slight elliptical counterclockwise manner between 91.4 million miles, which is the minor axis, and 94.5 million miles, which is a major axis, averaging 93 million miles. However, scientific observations of the, quote, stated, unquote, geometric sizes of the Sun and Earth and the, quote, stated, unquote, distances between the Earth and the Sun can be determined by using AutoCAD, which we will observe next. The, quote, stated, unquote, distances between the Sun and the Earth and their diameters are shown geometrically correct in AutoCAD. This allows us to observe and understand for ourselves the true geometric perspective NASA is stating. Due to the distance between the Sun and the Earth of, quote, 93 million miles, unquote, at a 93 million mile perspective, the Earth cannot be seen and the Sun is a small dot. Therefore, the sequence of AutoCAD views will start zoomed in on the Earth and zoom out to the 93 million mile perspective. Here we are zoomed in on the Earth, showing its, quote, stated diameter of 7,912 miles, unquote. Now we will slowly zoom out to the, quote, 93 million mile, unquote, perspective.
It'll be a long journey.
I'll tell you what, it's just ridiculous when you see the true geometric sizes of everything and what they say. It's just crazy.
There's the pale blue dot. That's us. That's home.
At this zoomed out perspective point, the Earth cannot be seen.
Wow, yeah, you can't even see it.
Nope. So
Here, AutoCAD is fully zoomed out and shows the, quote, 93 million mile, unquote, perspective. The Sun is a small dot. Now we will zoom in on the Sun, showing its, quote, stated diameter of 870,000 miles. Here we are zoomed in on the Sun, showing its, quote, stated diameter of 870,000 miles, unquote. Next, we will zoom out again to the, quote, 93 million mile, unquote, perspective and show the Sun's light emanating on the Earth as perpendicular rays. Here we are zoomed in on the Earth again, showing the, quote, stated diameter of 7,912 miles, unquote, with the Sun's light emanating on the Earth as, quote, perpendicular rays, unquote. As we observe the, quote, stated geometric perspective according to NASA, unquote, we see the distances between the Sun and the Earth are extremely enormous compared to their sizes and result in the heliocentric model as a deception. Based on the foundational geometric law of water, it is physically impossible for the surface of water to bend or curve. Therefore, all shorelines of all oceans are at sea level, which requires the Earth to be a circular level plane, and it is. This foundational geometric law results in the heliocentric model to be nothing but a lie.
So a lot of people don't really understand the perspective because they show these fake diagrams. It's just ridiculous. Or cartoons,
Yeah.
that gives you a better idea of what they're saying. I mean, it's just the sun is so far away. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You would not, it wouldn't make a difference on our seasons at that distance. Like you couldn't
No.
even see both of the dots when you zoomed out far enough. It was just
Right.
two tiny little dots. But this little tiny dot over here is causing 4 seasons on the one over there.
Right. Exactly right.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that puts it in a different perspective. That was a lot of
does.
work with the AutoCAD. I've never used that program. I think I used SketchUp to do 3D modeling and things a long time
Yeah.
ago. But that is
Yeah,
fascinating.
it doesn't like, so I don't use miles, I just use units, but it still doesn't like it to be that big, because you got to zoom in and out. It's a lot of zooming in and out to get those perspectives the way they are to see them. Yeah.
Wow, I imagine. Is this the presentation? Is that it?
Yes. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, that was that. All right, I just loaded up. So we're getting ready. We're going to talk again about now the April 8th solar event. And I'm going to just show the summary of part one presentation where, I showed, for each location that I did from Waco, Texas, Indianapolis, Indiana, Erie, Pennsylvania, and then Sherbrooke, Quebec, the actual location of the sun and moon from those particular locations, and then showed a yellow line around the edge where, anywhere else in that be able to see the sun or the moon is not geometrically lined up. So if the moon is a mass, that we should be able to see it. But you'd never see the moon as a mass during a new moon because the moon has lost all of its light. It's closer to the sun and it's invisible. So it's the one that's got the can you see it there?
Oh, the video. Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is it. This is like an animation. You have to kind of look at zoom in full screen, guys, when you're watching, so you can see the white dot near the red line, I think, is the sun, and then the black dot is the shadow of the moon. Is that correct by the green line?
Yes. And actually,
Okay.
it says sun. The sun is yellow, the moon is white. Then that black line is basically the observation line to the particular location where it's going to be 100% eclipse. And that yellow line is any place on that inside that yellow line, they are not geometrically lined up. Like if you go south, the only time it will line up because the moon's more north of the sun this time. This happens to be on this, and so on the north side of the sun and moon, then the moon's going to be right now lined up to appear that it's blocking the sun. But if you go to any other perspective, especially opposite of when you go more south on that same observation line, the sun and the moon are clearly apart from each other, as presented in part one. That tells you, okay, they're not lined up, so therefore I should see the moon.
Yeah.
But because it's invisible. Moon is just nothing but a light plasma that gains light when the sun goes farther away from the moon and loses light when the sun comes back around the moon. Okay.
Okay. So hopefully everybody can see it. I'm going to hit play, and that way they can watch the animation.
Yeah. So that's for Waco, Texas. You can turn off the sound if you want.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah. So it's showing you how the sun's moving different times of the day for April 8th. See, that's what it's doing that day. This is based on navigational data right off the United States Naval Observatory. You can just see that there it goes. And that's the same line they're showing, on all the maps that they show you on the news and wherever on the websites, things like that. Okay. That's it.
Wow.
Yep. So that's just a quick summary of what part one was. Part one was tons of geometry. I know it. I could see some comments that frustrated a lot of people. It's like, I'm sorry. Can you do it in a 5-minute video? It's like, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I could do is that quick one right there. This is the result of it, but that's not going to tell them what's really going on.
Yeah. I was having flashbacks to why I failed college algebra the first time around. It's like, oh yeah, I remember why now.
Yeah. So I pulled this up today. I thought, well, let's take a look at cultural beliefs of, quote, solar eclipses. So the Chinese, in ancient China, it was commonly held that solar eclipses occurred when a celestial dragon, attacked and devoured the sun. Well,
Yep. Serpent
dragon.
deity.
Yep, it's a dragon again. Satan, that dragon of old, right? So this is India, which is basically Hindu. According to legend, a cunning demon named Rahu sought to drink the nectar of the gods and thus attain immortality. Disguised as a woman, Rahu attempted to attend a banquet of the gods and was discovered by who other? Vishnu. As punishment, the demon was promptly beheaded, and it is his decapitated head flying across the sky during the eclipse. It's like, wow, that's a new one. It's a new one.
I'm sorry if anyone believes that. I'm not laughing at you. That just cracks me up. Sorry.
So the Native Americans, according to Choctaw legend, a mischievous black squirrel gnawing on the sun is the cause of the eclipse.
I'm part Native American. I don't take too much offense to that. Yeah.
Like the Chinese dragon, the squirrel must be frightened away by the clamor and yells of the events humans witness. So, I thought about that. It's like, well, what are we doing? What's the world going to do on Monday? They're going to get together and we're yell and scream and, give praise to this thing, right?
Yeah.
They're going to give praise to something they shouldn't be giving praise to. So the Egyptian one, and we talked about this in part 2 because I went back to talk about, when did the quote solar event or solar eclipses start occurring? And I went back. The Egyptians, although they were very savvy sun worshippers, they did not leave any explicit records detailing the solar eclipses. And in part 2, found out that it started to come about around 600s BC, before Christ, that a poet started quoting about Zeus being able to block the sun so it looks like it's nighttime. So it looks like historically this event didn't occur until around maybe 8 to 650 BC, which tells you it had to be built. So it had to be built. So here's another presentation that we really didn't walk through very well, but I want to do it now. It's the cone of perspective, how Satan's black orb command and control center poses as the moon during, quote, solar eclipses. So go ahead and bring that one up. I think that's the last video we have.
All right. Is it?
Should be the only one.
This one?
And welcome to
Yeah.
There you go.
the Truth. This presentation addresses how Satan's black orb, command and control center, poses as the moon during, quote, solar eclipses by using the same cone of perspective as the sun. Cone of perspective, how an object appears the same size at different distances. A cone of perspective is a visual perspective from an observation point where an object appears to be the same size regardless of how far away the object is from the observation point. This geometrically only occurs when the object's distance in miles and diameter in miles is the same ratio, which is distance divided by diameter equals ratio number. The cone of perspective diagram shown depicts this geometric law. All three objects shown in the cone of perspective appear to be the same size from the observation point, despite the fact that all three objects geometrically have different diameters and are different distances from the observation point. This occurs because all three objects have the same distance to diameter ratio of 10. Using the same distance to diameter ratio of 10, an object 1,000,000 miles away from the observation point will have a diameter of 100,000 miles and will appear the same size as the other three objects in the cone of perspective. Any object with the same distance to diameter ratio within the cone of perspective will appear to be the same size. NASA, mainstream science, and Satan use this cone of perspective geometric law to deceive the world concerning the sun's and moon's distances from the earth and their diameters. Cone of perspective for the sun and moon. The upper table shows the distance from earth and diameter of the sun and moon respectively, which NASA and mainstream science state. The distance to diameter ratio for the Sun is 106.9 and is 110.58 for the Moon. The lower table shows the distance from Earth of the Sun and Moon, respectively, using the United States Naval Observatory navigational data and double triangulation. The Sun's distance from the Earth is 3,107 miles, and the Moon's distance from the Earth is 3,062 miles. Using the same distance to diameter ratio, 106.9 for the Sun, the diameter of the Sun is 29 or 30 miles. Using the same distance to diameter ratio of 110.58 for the Moon, the diameter of the Moon is 28 miles. The Sun and Moon are the same sizes, with the Moon being 45 miles below the Sun. First Enoch tells us the Sun and Moon are the same size. Satan's Black Orb Command and Control Center uses the same cone of perspective as the Sun to pose as the Moon during, quote, solar eclipses, unquote. The distance to diameter ratio equals 106.9. Elevation of the first firmament/heaven above Earth, the Kármán line. The Kármán line was established in the 1960s by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale and has been used by members, countries, and organizations affiliated with the FAI as one definition of space. The Kármán line is a, quote, invisible boundary, unquote, around 62 miles above sea level, where the Earth's sky ends and space begins. However, the second law of thermodynamics states gases at different pressures will always combine to an equilibrium pressure. Earth's air primarily consists of two gases, which are 78% nitrogen and 20.9% oxygen at sea level. The air pressure at sea level is 14.7 psi, pounds per square inch, which is the perfect location for the human body to live due to the highest concentration of 20.9% oxygen in the air. With no boundary between the Earth's sky and space, the 0 psi, 0% oxygen vacuum of the, quote, infinite volume of space, unquote, will combine with the 14.7 psi, 20.9% oxygen of the very limited volume of Earth's air to the equilibrium pressure of 0 psi, 0% oxygen, vacuum of, quote, space, unquote, and there will be no life on Earth. Therefore, the second law of thermodynamics requires a boundary above the Earth which maintains the Earth's air pressure of 14.7 psi at sea level. This boundary is the first firmament/heaven above Earth and is approximately between 60 to 100 miles above sea level. The biblical creation model. First firmament/heaven is above Earth. The first firmament/heaven above Earth is approximately 60 to 100 miles above sea level with waters above. Genesis 1, 7-8. Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. Jubilees 2:4. And on the second day he created the firmament in the midst of the waters, and the waters were divided on that day. Half of them went up above, and half of them went down below the firmament that was in the midst over the face of the whole earth. And this was the only work God created on the second day. The biblical creation model. Paradise, Mother Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, is located in the third firmament/heaven. Paradise, Mother Jerusalem, and New Jerusalem are one and the same. 2 Corinthians 12:2-4. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of it, I do not know, but God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or out of it, I do not know, but God knows, was caught up to paradise. John 14, 1-2. Yeshua is speaking to his disciples. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you, for I go to prepare a place for you. Revelation 21:2. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Who is Yeshua? The biblical creation model. The sun and moon are located in the second firmament/heaven. Revelation 12:1. A great sign appeared in the heaven, a woman clothed in the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. Revelation 12:1 states the woman is the New Jerusalem, with the sun and moon under her feet. The sun and moon are located in the second firmament/heaven. Based on the United States Naval Observatory navigational data and geometric double triangulation, the sun is 3,107 miles above sea level, and the moon is 3,062 miles above sea level. Next, we'll use AutoCAD to show geometrically how Satan's black orb command and control center uses the same cone of perspective as the sun to pose as the moon during, quote, solar eclipses, unquote. This is the overall view of the sun's cone of perspective with its distance to diameter ratio of 106.9. The first firmament above the earth is shown at 100 miles above sea level. The sun is in the second firmament and is 3,107 miles above sea level and is 29 or 30 miles in diameter. The distance to diameter equals 106.9. Since it is impossible for the inhabitants of Earth to go through the first firmament/heaven, the distance from Earth to the second firmament/heaven is not known. Therefore, the line showing the second firmament/heaven is representative to indicate the sun is in the second firmament/heaven. Next, we will zoom in on Satan's black orb command and control center, showing that by using the same distance to diameter ratio of 106.9, the orb is in the sun's cone of perspective. This geometrically causes the orb to appear as the same size as the sun, posing as the moon, able to move in front of the sun, blocking the sun and the sun's rays. The orb is 90 miles above sea level, just below the first firmament/heaven, and is 0.84 miles in diameter. We will now zoom out and follow the cone of perspective to the sun's location. We observe Satan's black orb is perfectly geometrically aligned with the sun's cone of perspective to pose as the moon during, quote, solar eclipses, unquote. Satan's black orb command and control center posing as the moon. Satan's extremely advanced technological spherical command and control center structure is where he oversees dominion and authority over the kingdoms of the earth with the following capabilities: navigate and levitate at high elevations but below the earth's dome firmament. The firmament is approximately approximately 100 miles above sea level. Cloaking capability to become hidden when required. Advanced weapons capability like direct energy weapons. And the structure is approximately 0.84 miles in diameter to have the cone of perspective capability to block the sun and pose as the moon. During a new moon, which, quote, solar eclipses, unquote, always occur, the moon is closest to the sun, has no light, and is invisible. Therefore, it's impossible for the moon to block the sun or the sun rays. Satan himself reveals to the world by blocking the sun with his black orb command and control center, posing as the moon during, quote, solar eclipses, unquote. Thank you for watching this presentation, and we hope.
Yeah. It's kind of weird it was slow like that, but oh well. Are you on?
Let me mute myself. There you go. Sorry, tried to avoid having the squeaky chair contributing to the background noise. Yeah, that was, it was kind of slow. The video was kind of breaking up. I think it, when you got things like this, I remember we were live. We had like more viewers than we ever had with this guy, former NASA employee. And I was like, wow, we got a lot of people watching, and it just ended. Like the live stream just quit, and we had there was no reason. And he said, man, I've been doing live streams for a long time, and this has never happened. It gave us a weird message, and we started back up, and the numbers dropped off. But I was thinking, we're blessed so far that hasn't happened here.
Yes, we've been blessed. I'm glad there are a lot of people watching this because it's truth. You know, it's knowing some truth here. Think about. So we just get back on the PDF. What?
So I was reading the comments. All right, let's see. Is this one right here? There it is.
Yeah. So I just did that. So what I actually did this a couple days ago. I decided I did this for last year, but I went, on online where I could find out what the lunar cycles are for year 2024. So here are the lunar cycles. There's 12 of them. If you look at on the first column here, new moon, those are the dates. You see the one in yellow, April 8th. That's a full eclipse, and then the 2nd of October is another annular eclipse. Okay, but what's very interesting, it happened last year too. I think it happens every year. Enoch tells us in his book about the moon, how it rotates and how lunar cycles are. There's 6 months in a year that are 29 days and 6 months that are 30. Okay. And so what I did on the right here, you can add these up yourself, but it's got the days in between the quarters of the moon for the cycle. So you can see it's 29 and 30. So I color coded the 30s to be blue and the greens, 29s to be green. So you can tell it's 6 and 6. It adds to 354 days. That's what we hear about that in Jubilees and, Think Enoch as well. It tells us that the moon is 10 days slower than the sun, right there. So part of this, there are 12 new moons in 2024. There's on the list here. There are 2 solar eclipses in 2024, highlighted in yellow, and then I just said the same thing. So that's just what this is about, because we're going to get to why that's important, because of how we're told by NASA and mainstream science what's going on with the alignment between the sun, moon, and the Earth. You've already shown that real early in the presentation, but we'll keep going. So this is you got 12 new moons in year 2024 with only 2 solar eclipses, and then the one on the left is going to be the one for on Monday, total solar eclipse, and then the one on the right is going to happen October 2nd, but it's down south. Okay, just thought I'd share that.
That's cool.
And if you read, NASA, it says yes, solar eclipses happen once every 6 months. Okay, so it's interesting, and it is working here. This is the line of the path, and the dark area is the path that's 100% total solar eclipse. And it's just a very, very narrow path compared to the rest of the United States. So I dug back into the information I did on part 1 and just pulled this out real quick to explain what's going on at each location. Duration of the solar event and duration of totality. Okay. So for Waco, the duration of the solar event is 2 hours and 40 minutes, but the totality is only 4 minutes and 14 seconds. Very, very short. Okay. And that's when it's at 100% obscuration. That's where people can say, oh, I see the stars, it's totally dark. So in Indianapolis, Indiana, the duration for the solar event is 2 hours and 32 minutes. And they have 3 hours and 50 seconds of totality. Erie, Pennsylvania, the total solar event's 2 hours, 28 minutes, and 3 minutes, 44 seconds of totality. Up in Sherbrooke, Canada, duration is 2 hours and 21 minutes with a totality of 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Just thought that's a data point people should understand. When at your location, that's the only time you're going to see that it's going to make it dark, because even at 99%, it looks like almost a regular day, because the sun's brightness, once that orb moves out of the way just a little bit, it's back to a normal day. So that's why it's such a short duration. This particular solar eclipse or event is probably about twice as long as the one that occurred in what was it, August 17th of 2000. It was in 2017. It was about half that time for that total solar eclipse when it was coming across from the west to the east. So I found this. I think I found it today, because I'll tell you what, Yahweh just kind of inspires me and puts ideas in my mind. I check them out and I find more information. It's just beautiful. Locations of 99% obscuration experience a total overcast day. I go, what? So this guy, Mr. Fred Espenak, is a retired NASA astrophysicist who has experienced 30 total solar eclipses. Below are statements in an article from him. He says 100% obscuration or nothing. In other words, you need to be at 100% in that totality, because he says there's such a radical, dramatic difference between a 99% partial and 100% total. There's no comparison. During a total eclipse, the sky darkens suddenly and dramatically. The temperature drops, the stars come out. So I highlighted this. Even at a 99%, it gets no more dark than on a typical overcast day. In other words, you wouldn't even know it. If you didn't know and you were at 99%, you wouldn't know what was going on. That there was a, quote, a solar event going on. It's only in that narrow path.
Yeah. I would love to see pictures of the stars at that time. Like, what stars are we seeing?
Right.
Like, I bet the Southern Cross would be up, like, what's up there
Yeah.
at that time? That'd be so cool to see.
Then he says you can have a 75% or 80% partial solar eclipse. And if you didn't know what was happening, you might not even notice, because the environment doesn't even change. So, now I'm going to go to a chart here that news media's sun's obscuration map, extreme exaggerations and lies. If you look at this, look, you see the path of the total eclipse, right? That's the 100% obscuration. But then as soon as you go out of that to like 99% to 80%, look how they're showing it so dark still, right? It should be no change in darkness, but they're lying. Because when you get past that 100% obscuration, it's just an overcast day. You wouldn't even know it. Something's going on. And they did this all the way out. All the way out. They're showing it like you can tell the difference. No. That where it's over here, where it's like white, 20%, that's what it should be, right at the line of where it goes to 99%. This whole area from 20% to 99% should be white, because the only where it's going to show it dark is in that totality path. So this is a graphic of lies, and to kind of get people get hyped up. Okay, it doesn't have that impact like they're trying to show here.
Yeah. Wow.
So now this is what you were showing earlier. So we're going to go through this. This is the graphic deception of a solar eclipse during a new moon. So you see the sun over here to the right. It's kind of just peeking out a little bit, it's a little bit of yellow there. And then you see the moon in the middle, and they're showing the moon as a mass, like they typically would do, that it's a mass, and that the light is just on the opposite side, facing away from the globe Earth. But then look in here. They've got two things. You've got Aryan path of a prenumbral shadow sees partial eclipse. All right. So they're kind of in a way telling you the truth. This would be the truth, and I'll show it in the next slide. If the sun's rays are parallel, that whole dark area there would be all the way out to these edges here where they say it's just a partial eclipse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then they show you the area path of the umbral shadow total eclipse. Well, they're kind of telling you right here, just that video I did, this is the cone of perspective.
Yeah.
That's the cone of perspective. The orb, and I'll show you that later on. But so they're telling you truth and lies here on this one picture. There's a truth and there's a lie. Okay. So correct the graphic during a new moon. This, if we consider the moon as a solid mass, we get rid of all, I just X out all this stuff up here. And then I put on top, here comes the sun's parallel rays, because the sun is a solid mass. So it hits it, but then here's a full shadow. The full shadow should hit this part of the earth, same diameter of the moon, if it was a mass, right? 2000, what we think, they tell us it's 2,000 miles, 2,160 miles in diameter. So it should have a 2,000, it should cover much of the United States, the shadow, but it doesn't in reality. So at the bottom here, solar eclipses should occur in 2024 during all 12 new moons. Because this is only happening on 2 new moons, because he's using the cone of perspective where he's going to get in front of it. The other 10 new moons, we should see this happen. We should see this diameter of full shadow width coming from the moon, because it's doing the same thing. It's doing exactly the same thing. So we should have, all 12 months should have this full dark shadow. It would be just like for 2,000 miles, you'd be able to see the stars in a diameter, but you don't. Okay. I hope people are seeing the impact on this visual here. That all 12 months of the lunar cycle, when it's a new moon, this should be what occurs. A huge full width shadow of 2,000 miles on the earth, where you could be able to, it's a full total eclipse if the moon was a solid mass, but it's not, it's invisible. It's huge right there. So now I've corrected it. Correct graphic during a new moon, since the moon is invisible. Okay, so I crossed out the sun over there. It's not that far away, because we know through the navigational data that I've shown over many presentations that I moved the sun. See, it's closer, it's behind the moon, so I moved it closer. It's in alignment with the moon. I crossed out the globe Earth, just said circular level plane Earth. Then you see I placed Satan's black orb, command and control center, posing as the moon, close to the Earth, in that cone of perspective. So now we're seeing the truth here for those 2 months. This is what's happening in the 2 months. It's the cone of perspective. That's why it's only a pinpoint area, only 100 and some miles on the flat plane Earth, where it should have been, if it's even on the circular level plane Earth, it should be a diameter of 2,000 miles, which is most of United States. So, 2 solar eclipses occur in 2024 due to Satan's black orb command and control center moving in front of the sun, posing as the moon. But during all 12 new moons in 2024, the moon has 0% light, is invisible, and therefore cannot block the sun or the sun's light. So he picks whatever. I don't think he can't control. Yahweh controls the sun. He's given the sun and the moon orders or laws to go by, and that's how they circle. They circle around. The sun is the clock, and that sun's clock is the same for every year. It is a 364-day year. It's doing the same pattern. Okay, I haven't really looked at the moon. I think that's going to be my next study thing, which is going to take me hundreds of hours to do too. Start mapping that out to see what kind of cycle it has. But Satan knows that cycle, because he was here. I mean, him and the angels were here to see. They were created day one, so they saw how the Father placed the sun and the moon and the stars within the heavens, okay, and how they run. So he knows how they move. He can't control them, so he takes advantage of when they certain times. He knows when they're going to be lined up, like they can be like on Monday, and it doesn't seem to happen very often. Otherwise, he might do it more, I would think, right? So this is a big deal. I mean, these last 3 slides, people can use these and realize, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go back to scripture now again. Oh, this is there are unique occurrences in Yahweh's scriptures concerning the sun and the moon. Almighty Yahweh stopped the sun and moon for one full day in Joshua's time. Joshua 10, 12, 14, because Joshua had a huge battle going on, and he wanted to finish it before the sun went down. So on that day that the Lord gave the Amorites over to the Israelites, Joshua spoke to the Lord in the presence of Israel. He prayed, O sun, stand still over Gibeon, O moon, over the valley of Ajion. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance upon its enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down for about a full day. There has been no day like it before or since, when the Lord listened to the voice of a man, because the Lord fought for Israel.
Wow.
There's the answer right there for that one.
Have no fear.
Yep. And I've seen some information online, and it's all lies, that they're trying to use that time, saying that, well, a solar eclipse happened that time when the sun stopped. It was just the moon blocking the sun. And that's a lie. The Lord stopped the sun and the moon's movement literally for a full day. Now, I don't know if he started them up, he moved them back to where they should have been, in the regular cycle, probably, So Almighty Yahweh caused the darkness because Yeshua, his only begotten son, the light of the world, died. So basically, when Yeshua was on the cross, and that starting, and we'll read it here, that, well, I didn't finish it yet, but Satan's black orb can only cause full darkness, 100% obscuration for a maximum time of 4 minutes at a specific location, and not 3 hours, like we're going to see this Monday, right? It can only block a location for 4 minutes, and then it's done.
Yep.
Big hoopty da for nothing.
Yeah.
So Matthew 27:45, from the 6th hour, which is 12 noon, until the 9th hour, 3 p.m., darkness came over all the land. Luke 23:44, 45. It was now about the 6th hour, 12 noon, and darkness came over all the land until the 9th hour. The sun was darkened, which means obscured, and the veil of the temple was torn down the middle. So Yahweh darkened the sun. He could have turned down the light of it. He could have put some dense, heavy clouds for darkness, because he basically turned away not to see his sun. So that's also a term of light going, because Yahweh is all light as well, right? So those two occasions here, basically it's still Yahweh manipulating sun and moon for his own reasons for this. So I'm just going to go back to the basics. This is a review now of Yahweh's laws of the sun and moon. So when Genesis 1:14-18, he says the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. They rule, and sun always rules the day. The moon is never going to get in the way of the sun, because whenever the moon gets closer to the sun, it has no light and it's invisible. And during the night, the sun is always going to be, because the moon is slower, the sun's always going past it or to it, and that happens on a new moon. So whenever that happens, the sun's still in control, because when it's nighttime for a new moon, you won't see the moon anyway. So the sun's not blocking it. It's just the electromagnetic relationship between the two, right? And then Jubilees 2:8-10, basically, he says he created the sun and the moon to rule over the day and the night. Here again, it's very specific. There's rules, that the laws, that they do their courses, but they don't get in the way of interfere with each other. And we did this one previous too, but people can read the Enoch 41:5 and 41:7, but 41:7 is very, very good, because after this is the hidden and visible path of the moon. So he's telling you that the moon is hidden, which is the new moon, and visible path when it's starting to get light, full light, or back to zero. That's the visible path. That's anytime other than the new moon. And it travels the course of its journey in that place by day and by night. One stands opposite the other in front of the Lord of Spirits, and they give thanks and sing praise and do not rest, because their thanksgiving is like the rest to them. So I really highlighted this, that what we just read, always hidden during a new moon phase, and always visible during all other moon phases at various levels of illumination. It's right there.
Wow. Enoch is a
So,
good one for the
huh?
studying of the moon, the moon's
Yeah,
path, the sun, the gates, and the firmament.
yeah,
Enoch is a great read to
yeah.
understand how it works.
Right. And again, if anybody wants to, I did a 31 videos, a playlist that's about watching each day the moon's lunar cycle from September 29th last year to October 28th. And it'll show you with videos and pictures each day how the moon's light is either gaining or losing. And you can see, because I can zoom in really close with the camera, that when it loses its light, you can actually see part of the light still not touching the moon, and then there's nothing but darkness between it. So it's some kind of plasma. It's not a mass, because you see ripples and little specks of light that are not attached to the rest of the light main part of the moon. It's there. That's the visual observation through constantly looking at the cycle every day. Now there are a couple of days that it rained, so I couldn't do it, but I could still locate the sun based on the navigational data, and so I'd still show it on the map where they were and how much illumination level it is. Because again, Satan can't change that. Those are laws by Yahweh. He controls that. Satan has to live with it.
Yep.
So I just did this summaries chart here again. It's the the last thing about how the cone of protection he uses his orb to pose as the moon, since the moon is invisible. That's it.
Nice. Good breakdown. Yeah, it's cool seeing unique perspectives of how this stuff works, because
Right.
I am not mathematical with things. I'm very visual, and when I see things, I can understand it. And so that's very, very good to have all those visuals, and as well as the math aspect of it as well.
Right. But those three charts that I showed, where they're showing both the cone of perspective in there and then the shadow, the full width shadow, just those three charts. If somebody can look at those, they should see what I'm talking about. That, they're lying right there, having both at the same time.
Yeah. So awesome. If you guys have any questions, like Debbie says here, type them in all caps, make them capitalized so we can see them. Wish it was like the old days. We could have call-ins, Still do that on here. I'm just nervous about that. I don't know why. For some reason, I'm nervous about having call-ins and sending out the link publicly to everybody.
Right.
You never know.
You have to have that 15-second delay.
Yeah. I would have to have the NASA delay.
Right.
Yeah, because I've got a lot of haters, and many of them, they don't show up because I've already blocked them. So like they're probably still there. I try, and I would give so much lenience and forgiveness and patience, and it's just like after a while, I'm like, all right. Once they're attacking other people, then that's where I have to draw the line. I'm okay if they're slandering me,
right?
But if they slander somebody like a guest or my wife or somebody, then it's like you're done.
Yeah, hands off, buddy.
Yeah, it's a different scenario.
So the other thing too, I'm going to follow up. Obviously a lot of people are going to be on Monday, and looks like here in Myrtle Beach, the weather looks like it's going to be pretty good. So
yeah,
I'll do my thing. I've already got coordinates, what's supposed to happen, for the azimuth and altitude angles and things like that. And, see what I can, probably do a little short thing after that of what I noticed,
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about filming it. I don't know. This day is sort of like a special day, for us, like a Sabbath day pretty much. And so it's like,
yeah, because it's your last, yeah, it's right. It's the last unleavened bread day. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, should I film it? Probably, I don't know. I'm tempted to, but at the same time, it's like, no, I just want to enjoy my day and not even worry about it at all. There's going to be so much film of this thing.
Yeah.
Never from space, though. We're not going to see the ISS that's allegedly going around every 90 minutes, having perfect opportunities to view it.
That's in a big pool somewhere. It's in a pool.
Yeah. So I would like that. Like if I was them, I would be up there going, guys, we're going to live stream this and you're going to see how cool it is. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
All those thousands of satellites, we're still not going to do that. Like, come on, give us something. Nope.
Remember that movie Gravity that they put out on purpose with
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock? I mean, there's like all the stuff going on, and something gets hit and it breaks. Like they're trying to make it look real.
Yeah, it looked pretty real. Like some of the movies, they do a good job. And NASA, they're doing better. They've corrected a lot of their errors with the wire harnesses, masking
Right,
effect going away and all that. Like they're getting better.
right,
And there's a time when we're not going to be able to tell. They're really working to get it to where they can do this stuff. And the live conversations are a big deal because when they first started doing them, they were messing up, and now they're getting
right.
to where it's like they don't move, they stay in front of the camera, they make sure they're very careful, not to mess up, not to say we're across the country from where we're talking to you right now. Those sort of bloopers. They try not to say those things.
I
Um,
mean, everything's blue screen or green screen, so they could be right next
yeah,
door in another studio with them.
yeah,
You know, um,
lying signs. Part of the lying signs and wonders that they're
right,
doing, I think. And we
right.
got Brother Steve Martin from Assembly of Yahweh, North Alabama. I got to meet this man twice. Awesome, man. I'm learning a lot from this brother. He's come a long way. His testimony, where he was a Baptist preacher, and now his walk is just powerful. It's amazing how much he's learned in these last days. So I'm
Praise
learning a
God.
lot from you. We have his videos playing weekly now. It's cool, humble, and truth seeking man.
Mhm.
Tyler Porter in the house. A lot of cool people, awesome people. Somebody said, please explain. This is Judy McCullough. This is for
Okay.
you, George. Please explain Satan's black orb. Where'd you find that information? Because yeah, that's something I'm on the fence about. I'm not saying
Right,
like guys believe it is
right.
Satan's black orb.
Well,
It's something that makes sense to a lot of people, and
right. Well, I guess it's probably just about deducing things like if you understand the physical and electromagnetic relationship between the sun and the moon, which is actually in First Enoch, tells you what's going on with the cycles of the lunar cycles. How when the sun and the moon are farthest apart, the moon is bright, and so when they're together, the light's out of it and there's nothing there. So if there's nothing there, which is invisible, and through all of my video investigations that I did for that lunar cycle that I did back in the fall, I know that the moon is invisible during a new moon. So something is going across it. And nowhere in any of Yahweh's scriptures does it talk about another entity that he created that would actually be able to go in front of the sun and block it out. So, Satan is the deceiver of deceivers,
yeah,
distractor of distractors. And a lot of it has to do with technologies that we don't have the technologies. We're Since Satan is the prince of the air, and he said that in Scripture when Yahushua was basically tempted by him. And one of the times he was tempted, he took him up to a high place where he could see all the kingdoms of the earth at once. And it's like, well, you can't do that on a globe map because you can't see the underside. So this also points to a circular level plane. Okay, so
yeah,
he's up there, and then Prince of the Air, Satan says, if you bow down and worship me, I will give you all these kingdoms because it's been relinquished to me. It's been given to him. Yahweh's allowing him to do this, and he can give it to anybody he wants. Jesus ignored that. He said, away from me. You shall only worship the one true God, Yahweh. Um, and so when it says a high place, even there, well, it can't just be a mountain. The mountains are not tall enough. Mount Everest, you can't see the whole circular level plane. You've got to be way, way up there, real high. So you have to kind of look at that a little bit deeper. It's like, well, how do you get up there? Because uh, Yeshua was a man. He's fully flesh and blood. He's not like an angel. So Satan somehow probably carried him up there. It got him up there to look at it. And then, since he was flesh and blood, he couldn't come down. Yahweh's angels brought him back down. So if you watch the old Star Trek movies, I don't know how old you are, Judy, but I watched the Star Trek movies way back when they first came out, when I was young, and I was really into them. So they were showing all the technologies back then that they actually have, but they don't let the masses know about it because Satan's in control pretty much of everything in the world. If you look, he controls everything, literally. He's allowed to control everything. In some of the previous presentations, I show a whole list of everything, practically what you could think of that's part of the world. He's got influence on it. And so, in Star Trek, way back then, they had cloaking devices, they had lasers. They could beam me up, Scotty. Well, angels can do that. Angels can go from spirit being in heaven and come down here and be a physical body, a body that you can touch and they can eat. So there's technology there. A lot of it's the creation that happened with Almighty Yahweh. He has an ether here, which is made up of energy, vibration, and frequency. And these play a lot into technologies that the angels know about, and certainly Satan. And not only that, but Satan has an army of unclean spirits. So they have technologies that we don't know about. I mean, maybe you've seen some clips of these UFOs, that you can see these clips. These things pop up and they go real fast. We don't have that technology, but I think there's some people that are demon possessed that have that ability because they're given to by the demons to them to make these things and create this high level technology. If you looked at the one of the slides, it says what technology he has. He can levitate, because he's taken advantage of the ether's electromagnetic energy to reverse charges, so he can levitate now instead of falling to the earth by the charges, trying to bring it down. It's going to repel it and go up. So that's what's happening. I don't know if you've heard about Mercury engines or not. Mercury vortex engines. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they are something that's extremely technological and apparently is been known. So there's just a lot of technology there that's been hidden. And you look at some of the movies like Star Wars, they're not just telling you about the Death Star for entertainment. They're telling you what's really going on.
Yeah, someone said, I remember watching a whistleblower video back when I was way before Biblical Earth stuff, about NASA being a cover-up for the amazing technology that they had, the Babylonian technology, that this advanced stuff that they're going to market as alien technology if
Sure.
if you ever find it.
Right.
But it's stuff that they don't want us knowing. That's why they've had great resets in the past. It's not to hide the millennial reign. They can't have us getting too far along and using some of that technology, that wisdom of the fallen technology, things that people were hungry to learn. Like it says, I think in Jubilees, they were hungry to learn these things, or maybe that's Enoch. I'm trying to, that's Jubilees. And so they found a lot of that writing engraved in stone. And so the fallen left their writings in the stone for people to look that up and bring back that technology, bring back that wisdom. Of course, you have these unclean spirits, using their puppets right now. Mankind could not pull off the deceptions you're seeing right now that are worldwide, with the globe being one of them, without the help of these beings that have been around forever, these powers of darkness that have been around since the flood, doing what they're doing, or pre-flood, I should say. Right. So yeah, Mountain Man said, what text can I read? I don't know if there's any good books on it, but Tyler Porter in the chat was sharing some links to Sean Griffin on the YouTube channel. Is called Kingdom in Context, and he has a series called Investigating Babylon. Right. And so you can watch that. It's lengthy. It's a lot of videos, but it'll show you step by step how this is possible. And so could it be a lying sign and wonder? One of those, like the mystery Babylon orb of Satan. It could be. So it makes it seem definitely in the realm of possibility.
But I'll just fall back on the fact that when you look at Yahweh's creation and what the sun and moon were designed to do, that during a new moon, there's no moon visible. So something's blocking it, right?
Yeah.
And it's not mentioned in any of Yahweh's scriptures. Sun, moon, and stars is what he created. That was it.
Yeah, lights in the firmament for signs and appointed times.
Yep. Right.
It's what they are, and he set them in the firmament. Oops, I just missed. He put it in the chat. Yeah. Say we got Earth first, space later here. A local fellow truther, awesome young man. Got to meet him. So many people. We're trying to have a meetup soon, but the places we usually reserve are not letting us reserve them until like June or July. So I'm going to try to find another place to have one sooner than July. I don't want to wait until July to have a meetup. You guys are getting hungry for that. They pulled off the pandemic.
Might try to come down and be part of that when, let us know.
Yeah, get you to. They're awesome. Meetups are awesome. If you're in an area where you feel lonely and secluded, use your resources, use the apps, the Flat Earth Sun and Moon app, whatever you can, and just have a little gathering, even if it's 7 or 8 people or 5 people, truth seekers. It makes a difference. It makes you feel like you're not alone. And people are willing to travel. We had one, and people were traveling from Minnesota all the way to north, to Tennessee. We had it in Tennessee, even though we live in Georgia. We had people traveling from all over Colorado. I mean, it was just like, you name it, they were traveling here, and it was a blessing seeing all those people. It's like a precursor to when we all unite once and for all. It's so much fun.
So I don't know if this can be seen, but here is tons of Hollywood movies basically portray a sphere. I don't know if I can. It's probably not going to do it, but there's so many movies that show the black orb or sphere, so they're really big into that. Many of the companies that are controlled by Satan, their logos are eclipses. I mean, it's everywhere. I've done a couple of videos a couple times, and again, we can talk about lunar, but so if you've seen my presentation based on the navigational data, we're on a circular level plane. The sun is always at 3,107 miles above sea level, rotating clockwise. And then the moon is a little bit below that, 3,062. So they're both circling same elevations on their own around. So when a lunar eclipse happens, which, by the way, a lunar eclipse all eclipses are not real. But we talked mainly about the new moon, which is when it's new moon, that's when the solar eclipses happen. They're not eclipses. The lunar eclipse, they say that the Earth is in between the sun and the moon. Well, we've already proved that the Earth is a circular level plane, and both the sun and the moon are above it. So there's never going to be an eclipse. What's happening on a lunar eclipse, if you notice, it's always going to be on a full moon. Okay, so it happens on a full moon. When that occurs, the sun and the moon are 180 degrees apart from each other on a circular level plane. They're 180 degrees because the farthest the sun is from the moon is fully charged. And then occasionally when we see the moon do some type of a light sequence, we don't know what it is, but I think it could be some type of a sign from Yahweh when that happens. But it does seem like it kind of pulses its light and changes a little color, and then goes back to normal. Sorry. But I've noticed sometimes though, there's different types of lunar eclipses, or I'd say full moon occurrences when the lunar eclipse could happen. When it's just, again, it's a light change by the moon itself. I don't know why, and I'm not quite sure if there's anything in God's word that talks about that. We talk about certain ordinances and things like that. But when it's a full moon, one of two things happening: either the sun's going down or the moon's rising up, or vice versa, right? So it depends. One time when I was videoing it, taking pictures, the sun was setting and the moon was coming up. But when it did its light thing, the light was on the opposite side. When it did its little sequence, it was on the opposite side of the sun on the moon. So that should never have happened,
Wow. Let's see if any more questions. The reason I asked about the filming, I saw the lunar eclipse go from a full moon to a gray orb 1/10 in size. Did you get that on video? I'm not sure if they did. Yeah. Are you going to be filming it? I think that's the main thing they were asking. Are you going to be filming it and trying to capture anything? I think you might have already answered that. Yeah. Or the solar eclipse. I'm sorry, the solar.
Oh, does he mean solar?
I think.
Oh, he said lunar.
Oh, did he? Lunar. Okay, lunar. He did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what was happening there because the full moon, again, like I said, is opposite the sun, and is always at the same elevation, so it shouldn't be changing much in a 24-hour period, or
Yeah.
even however long the full moon's out for that night before it goes
Mhm.
away. It's
Can we tell anything? I'm trying to get all the questions here. Can we tell anything from the duration of the eclipse across the USA?
Are you talking about the total duration when it goes from like around Texas and then all up past into Canada? Is if that's what the question is? Let's see. I had the durations at each location, right? And that's just only because the sun is rotating clockwise. The shadows are going that way, so it's probably a little less than 3 hours total on the United States. I just went I didn't go farther south than Waco. I went from Waco to Sherbrooke, Canada. So it was about 2 hours and 40 minutes, I think was the total duration.
Yeah. Wonder what that'll be like out on the ocean. People going out in that path on the ocean. That'd be interesting. I didn't even think about that. All those boats in the water. That'd be cool. Really gonna mess with the fish. Man, we need to repent. Awesome. Good questions. Thank you guys for being respectful in the chat and keeping people in check. I've seen always observed that during these things. People are putting people in timeout and doing a good job protecting everyone from all the nonsense things that go on, the attacks, the spiritual attacks. There's spiritual warfare going on with all these
Right,
things. I mean, we have
right.
people literally around the world watching, so you never know
hmm
what angle. I know we've got trolls that
Yeah, bots.
have done things outside of YouTube. They've come after us at our jobs, like tried to
Kidding
get us
me.
in trouble at work, calling central office, saying stuff. It's ridiculous the links people would go through to try to
Sad.
bring you down spiritually, but in reality, it just makes you
No, you're doing the right
more
thing.
fired up, and yeah, you're on
Right.
the right track.
Right. Yeah.
Well, heck yeah, it's been a blessing. We've been going live for over 2 hours, I think, 2 hours and
Yeah.
17
Yeah.
minutes. And so, yeah, this is a good way to end our Sabbath. And
Yes.
now it's about time to get back to work. I will be taking Monday off, so that'll be nice to whatever happens with all their planned deceptions and things they got going on. Be at peace. Don't worry about it.
Right.
It's going to be
Right.
just let it be a relaxing day for you. Don't freak out. Don't expect to see anything crazy. It would be nice though. I'm always like, man, I just wish this was like time for the resurrection. Let's go. I know a lot of people are feeling that way. Like, let's go. First resurrection. Here we come.
Yeah, yeah. 2030 is kind of an interesting thing that UN's, got some marker there. So
Yeah.
close to that.
Yeah. And the Antarctic Treaty, I was looking into that again today. It expires in 2040 along with something else. And I thought, man, it's so fascinating that the 2040s, they're just kind of like, we're going to drop our guard a little bit with this stuff. Like they know something's going to happen.
Right.
Or they don't really know. They can't change anything, but they're pretty sure there's significant times ahead. That's why they're ramping up all this lawlessness.
Right.
Like the word tells us, there's going to be a lot of lawlessness.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and let you all get back to your lives. Let George get back to his awesome wife, and I'm going to go and spend some time with the family. Got my grandson just came over, so go see him. I'm a grandpa now.
You're too young for that.
I know I'm too young and immature to be a grandpa. It is not right. He doesn't know I'm his granddad yet. I'm afraid to tell him.
That's cute.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see you guys around real soon. Hopefully, if something cool happens, we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Right.
But yeah, thanks, George. Thanks again for sharing all of your knowledge. It's been a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
All right. We will see you guys around real soon.
All right.